Things are crazy in Tampa Bay. Thank you for joining us. We're here live at Michael Clayton Live. And listen, today it's the NFL draft, okay? In Tampa Bay, there's a new sheriff in town, but he's actually a GOAT, all right? There's a new Rob in town, and he just may be robbing O.J. Howard out of a job. And like I mentioned, today's the NFL draft, a chance for all 32 teams to get better. And we tune in and get some inside information from Monday Night Football's and LSU's Booger McFarland. Booger, thank you so much for joining us today. The talk of the Bucks draft is potentially running back. We've heard some offensive lineman talk. Where do you think the Bucks will draft today? And do you think Ronald Jones is a championship caliber running back?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Mike. I think the Bucks are going to go offensive tackle. I think, unless the draft board falls kind of funny, I think if you're the Buccaneers and you've gotten Tom Brady, you've gotten Rob Gronkowski, you've signed JPP back, you've signed Ndamukong Suh back to ensure up the defensive line, I think the next thing is to protect the quarterback, because we know that Tom Brady's not going to be a statue back there as far as a guy who's going to move or have movement skills. And so for me, the way I look at it is you got to go offensive tackle in round one. And then I think the sneaky pick comes in round two if you're the Bucks, because I think the one thing they don't have right now is they don't have a pass-catching running back. And so Ronald Jones, while he can carry the load on first and second down, I think they need a proven pass catcher at that position. So someone like our buddy from LSU, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, would make a lot of sense. But we'll see how this thing shakes out.
Boog, we hear a lot of positives, and the Tampa Bay fans are very familiar with how the Bucks look on paper. And there's a lot of talk, positive talk behind the addition of Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. I want to go a different route. Do you see any negatives by adding those two great players to this roster in Tampa Bay?
None at all. And, people can talk about, well, what about the future? Listen. Here's what I'll tell you about the future. Nobody really cares about it right now. People are trying to win now. It's not about what you can do 3, 4, 5 years from now. You're trying to win a championship now, because once if you do that, nobody can take that away. And so I think from a leadership standpoint, Tom Brady is going to bring everything he's always exhibited in New England. I think Gronkowski, from a competitive standpoint, is going to show you just how you compete. And you got two Hall of Fame players. So I can't think of anything that really jumps out from a negative standpoint when you bring two arguably of the greatest players at their respective position to your organization. And they still have a couple of years of football left. Let's not forget, Brady signed a guaranteed 2-year deal. So he's planning on being here 2 years. I know Gronk has 1 year left, but would it really surprise anyone if he signed on for another if this year goes well? So you essentially have Gronk and Brady in your organization for 2 years. I think everybody should be happy with that.
With the addition of Rob Gronkowski, there has been some talk in the water down here that O.J. Howard may be moved. We know that he's highly talented, but he's gotten off to a slow start early in his career, has made some big plays. What do you see with the salary cap issues with the Bucks? Do you see them potentially moving O.J. Howard to try to capitalize on that offensive lineman addition that you mentioned?
Well, I would go the opposite way. I think if you're going to move somebody, why not move Cameron Brate? If I'm not mistaken, I think Brate's salary cap number is higher than O.J. Howard. So if you're trying to get underneath the salary cap and you're trying to alleviate the cap hit at the tight end position, because we know Gronk's going to make $10 million, why not keep the quote-unquote younger, more athletic, cheaper guy in O.J. Howard? You move Cameron Brate. He is making a little bit more money. I know he agreed to a salary restructure, but he's still a higher-priced guy and not as highly thought of as an O.J. Howard. So I tend to go against the curve. I would probably move Cameron Brate and then have a really dynamic pair of tight ends with Gronk and O.J. Howard.
And to piggyback what you said, O.J. Howard is probably due about $9 to $10 million in 2021. You say it's all about winning right now. If they do get into salary cap issues, they can move him in 2021. I fully agree with that. 3 quarterbacks in the draft, Booger: Burrow, Tua, Herbert. A lot of the talk about these 3 guys. In your opinion, who comes off the board first, and who's your most talented quarterback in this year's draft?
Well, I think you have to look at all the factors, play in the last year, the injuries, et cetera, competition. And I think when you look at all that, you'd have to give them nod to Joe Burrow. I think with the last 18 months of football that he's played, he's been really, really good. The last year has been magical, 15-0, leading LSU to a national championship. And not only that, but just how he did it. He was always shouldering the load, throwing the football. I want my quarterback to do a couple of things and do them really well. You got to make good decisions. I think that's the reason why Jameis is not here in Tampa now, is because the decisions he made weren't necessarily good. Still very accomplished as a passer, but his decision-making wasn't there. I want my quarterback to be accurate. I need a guy that can complete in today's NFL 65 to 70% of his balls because it's a passing league now. And last but not least, I need a guy to throw the football with timing and anticipation. The biggest knock on Michael Vick years ago was Michael Vick had to see it and then throw it. In today's NFL, you got to throw it before you see it. And it sounds crazy, which means you got to anticipate what it's going to look like before you ever see it. Because as a receiver, Mike, when you put that foot in the ground and you come out of that break, if that ball is not halfway there at the very minimum, it's a problem. That means you're going to wait on it. So you got to have quarterbacks that can anticipate and throw the ball early. And I think Joe Burrow does that. I think the more intrigue is going to come with the second quarterback off the board. Is it going to be Herbert? Is it going to be Tua? Maybe even it's Jordan Love. Somebody takes a wild card. I think if Tua had not been injured, he will be competing for the number one spot. With that being said, I draft him at number 2. I think the level of competition that Justin Herbert has faced with his history of having issues with some of the things I just spoke of as far as timing and throwing with anticipation, I would put him at 3. But the guy with the biggest upside, some people have compared to Patrick Mahomes, is Jordan Love. I don't see that. However, there is still a lot of intriguing tools there to work with. So I think those are going to be your first 4 quarterbacks off the board. I'd go Burrow, Tua, Herbert, and then Love. But we'll see how it goes on draft night.
Well, there's one guy that you didn't mention that literally brought tears to my eyes a few years ago or a couple of years ago, and I think it's probably because of my bias towards Coach Saban, and I was tuned in with Jalen Hurts. We didn't see all of those things that you mentioned that you wanted to see in a quarterback early in his college career, which led to Tua kind of getting a starting job, but he transfers to Oklahoma. He fixes a lot of those issues, and how he handled the situation, Boog, lets me know that the guy is a leader. He has character, and he has those intangibles that can lead a team. Where do you see Jalen Hurts coming off the board, and do you see him potentially assuming a starting position in the National Football League in the foreseeable future?
Well, I think with everything that happened in the last couple of years, with Kyler Murray coming in from a spread offense, Cliff Kingsbury changing the entire program around for him. You look at Lamar Jackson going to Baltimore, and they changed their entire program around to fit his skill set. It's going to take something like that for Jalen Hurts to come in and be a starter. Some people are saying he's going to go first round. I don't see that. I think it's far more likely he goes second or third round than first. And I would love to see him in a situation where he can sit and learn for a year. Get with the guy who is a quarterback whisperer. Matt Nagy, Andy Reid, Sean Payton, these guys that when they get their hands on a piece of clay, they know how to mold it. They don't try to change what you do. They just try to add to it and expand your repertoire. And so I think Jalen Hurts can play in the NFL. I think if you were to ask him in an honest moment how soon he would be ready, he's probably a couple of years away, in my opinion, from being a high-level starter. If that's what his ceiling is. But I do think there is a place, as we've seen in the last couple of years, for him in the NFL with the advent of a guy like Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson and the MVP of the Super Bowl and Patrick Mahomes. Like guys that can throw on the run, that are mobile, that are the athletic quarterbacks are kind of what the position has turned into in the last few years.
Boog, I see that you are sitting poised in your theater room. It's looking rather nice there. But before I let you go, we're going to take a quick commercial break. I got a few more things I want to run by your nose. We'll take a quick break.
Your quality of life is impacted by pests trying to make your home their home.
At Aero Environmental Services, we keep your family and pets safe from unwanted pests. To learn more, visit aeroservices.com and schedule your free total home pest evaluation today.
Aero Environmental Services provides effective pest control that improves your quality of life so you can truly relax and enjoy yourself with friends and family.
Welcome back to Michael Clayton Live. We are on the line with Monday Night Football's Booger McFarland. We're talking about the NFL Draft, Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, and the potential draft picks of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Further in that conversation, Boog, where do you see Teddy Bridgewater is in Carolina? Drew Brees is in New Orleans. Matt Ryan returns to Atlanta, and the GOAT has arrived in Tampa Bay. Who takes the NFC South, and where do you match up the NFC South in comparison to the rest of the league?
Well, I think when you look at the South, I think it's going to be one of the more competitive divisions. I think anytime you look at division hierarchy, you always start with the quarterback position. And in the South, you got Brady, you got Brees, you got Matt Ryan, and then, oh, by the way, Teddy Bridgewater's not chopped liver. So I think that division is going to be tough. I would still lean toward the Saints. A lot of continuity. They've been together for a long time. They understand what it's like to play together. And when you add in the fact that we have a pandemic going on with nobody really being able to get assimilated and get familiar with new surroundings, i.e. Brady, Bridgewater, you got Gurley going to Atlanta, a lot of turnover on those three teams, not much turnover with New Orleans. So I would lean toward right now New Orleans being the favorite in the South. But I do think overall, when you look at it, the NFC is stacked, man. Like the NFC is really, really loaded. I think the 49ers got to be the team to beat. You got Seattle. You got if Nick Foles can be what he was in Philadelphia, you got Nick Foles in Chicago. I'm going to tell you, they're going to be a sleeper team because that defense is outstanding. You got New Orleans. You got Tampa. What are they going to do? Hey, what about Green Bay? They won, 12, 13 games last year. I mean, I can go on and on. The NFC is absolutely loaded. And I haven't even mentioned the Cowboys because we know what they do with that offense and Dak Prescott, depending on when they get him signed back. So it is a loaded conference in the NFC.
Boog, speaking of quarterbacks, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the departure of Jameis Winston. I think here in Tampa, you've had some mixed feelings about him leaving, but when you sign the GOAT, I think that quickly puts everybody back on track. The ticket sales are through the roof. We mentioned the young quarterbacks in the draft. Does Jameis Winston fall in that category above those young guys who may be potentially drafted, getting an opportunity to maybe back up or potentially start again this year?
Well, I know Jameis probably wants to start. I think in a perfect world, if you're Jameis, and I said this a few weeks ago, if you're Jameis, I think there are two places you go. One, you go to a team that's going to give you an opportunity to compete for a starter, like a Jacksonville, maybe even a Los Angeles. And if you can't get some real money there, then you take a vet minimum deal or whatever that number is, whether it's $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, whatever. It doesn't matter. The money doesn't matter. You go to New Orleans and you sit behind Drew Brees, and it's you, it's Drew Brees, and it's Taysom Hill. Sean Payton showed us last year that when Drew got hurt, he still needs a quote-unquote regular quarterback. That's why Teddy Bridgewater was the guy for 5 games. Well, guess what? Teddy Bridgewater's in Carolina. So who's going to be the backup quarterback? Not the wildcat guy like Taysom Hill, not the guy that's going to come in and run all the different gadget plays that Taysom Hill did. Who's going to be the actual quarterback if something happens to Drew Brees? They still need a real backup. I would love to see Jameis go to New Orleans, work with Sean Payton, work with Drew Brees, understand what it's like to follow and be with a Hall of Fame quarterback. And Jameis is, 26, 27 years old? He's still got 10, 12 years left in his career. So take 1 year, learn from Drew Brees, learn from Sean Payton, and guess what? The thing that this league has shown, they are so starved for quarterbacks. You mean to tell me Jameis Winston, a year behind Drew Brees, on the open market next year? Look what Teddy Bridgewater got. Teddy Bridgewater got $21 million a year off of 5 starts. Let's just say Jameis gets a couple starts and plays well. Jameis will get paid in 2021 or 2022, either way. And I still think he's going to have many more good years left in his body of work.
All right, Boog, I would be remiss if I didn't go back to college, back to LSU. I want to ask you a question about a young man who I believe has been talked about, but could very well be the best receiver in the draft. Justin Jefferson had some early mishaps early in his career, but last year he was flawless. His yards after catch are tremendous. He knows how to work the middle of the field. What do you say about Justin Jefferson and his projections in this year's draft?
Yeah, I think the biggest question about him was early on in the process was his speed. And then I think he ran the 4.4 at the combine, and that solidified him being a top 20 pick. I think the worst place he goes or the lowest spot he'll go to, the Philadelphia Eagles, but I fully expect him to be a top 20 pick. He's durable. He's a part of an athletic family. And I do think the fact that he improved what you have to do to be a receiver. He had a couple of drops early in his career. Last year, he didn't drop anything. Like he was money. And he does the one thing that I think is tough to do as a receiver. He understands how to work the middle of the field. Like you can line up anybody out there and run a go route. You can line up anybody out there and run a slant. Who can work the middle of the field? Who can work the deep digs? Who can understand man and zone, when to shut it down, when to speed it up? Like he gets how to work and manipulate the middle of the field. And to me, that makes him a lot more valuable than some of the other guys. I think he's going to be the third receiver off the board. Some people, are high on Ruggs and Judy, and I get all that. You got Lamb, you got Judy, you got Ruggs. I would actually take him before Ruggs. Nothing against the 4.27, but I do think that there is something to be said about a guy that can work the middle of the field. Not saying that Henry Ruggs can't, but I just have never seen him do it. He's always been an outside guy and a vertical threat.
Boog, we've talked all over the NFL. We've talked different teams. We've talked different players. This question is all about you. How are you handling yourself? How are you managing the family during this time of the COVID-19 pandemic? Are you staying safe? I see that you're sitting pretty at home right now. How are things for you, Boog?
Well, I appreciate you asking. I think we all have to try to adjust to the new normal. And, for me, I've always been a routine guy. So what I try to do is develop a routine regardless of the circumstances or the adversity that we're faced. And there's no school, so everybody's homeschooling. And so you got to figure out a way to provide an opportunity of structure for your children, get a schedule together. I'm the PE teacher and the guy that gets them outside and get them rolling. So I've been doing that. And, at the same time preparing for what I got to do, and that's get ready for the draft. So just try to provide structure, man. We're healthy. We're well. We're fighting through, trying to keep them at home, but also keep them active and keep them from not being so bored. So it's good, man. And in the grand scheme of things, I think when we look back on this 5-10 years from now, we're going to realize it was a difficult, scary time, but I think we'll be better off for it.
All this time, but have you at least learned how to swim yet? Are you taking advantage of the pool time?
I get in the pool, but there's really no need to learn how to swim at this point. My pool is only 6 feet, so I can jump in the bottom of it and come up. So there really hasn't been a swimming initiative by me just yet. Maybe one day, Mike, but not yet.
Listen, after LSU won the national championship, I made a commitment to wear LSU gear 365 days a year. Boog, I got the LSU gloves. I got LSU hats. I got an LSU mask, for God's sake. We're going all the way, even if I have to step out to the grocery store. All right. Has Stringfellow sent you some gear, man? Are you rocking LSU and representing proud in the community of Tampa Bay like you do so graciously on Monday Night Football?
Listen, Mike, I rock LSU all the time. I'm about to go jump on this Peloton bike, and when I get on it, I'm going to have my LSU tights on as I rock out and try to get my conditioning in. But I, like you, am very proud of the Tigers, man. It was a great day, a great night down in New Orleans. And you know how football goes, man. We enjoyed it. Now let's go try to do it again.
Do it again, man. And Booger, continue to be great, man. I've enjoyed your career. Looked up to you, man. Thank you so much for what you've done for me. And thank you for what you provide to Monday Night Football. Continue your success, man. Keep going, man. Love what you're doing. And thank you so much for joining Michael Clayton Live today.
Anytime, Mike. Take it easy, buddy.